right, everybody, warm up those brains. It's time once again for the Get More Smarter podcast. This one here is episode 216. I'm Jason Bain.
I'm Ian Silveria. This week on the Get More Smarter podcast, the Big Orange Guy is assembling a rogues gallery of cabinet members to most likely destroy the entire federal government from the inside, making people like us breathe a sigh of relief when comparative normies like Marco Rubio get nominated. Next, two leading Colorado Democrats have a pretty bad week based on things they said in public and not so public. Then, we break down the final-ish results of the elections in the blue-ish rectangle that is the Centennial State, check in with our 8th favorite member of Congress from Colorado in her new district, and find out that the whole bread sandwich thing may have been a cover after all, because the new congressman-elect from our 8th favorite member of Congress's old district is getting pretty weird.
Yes, very weird. We've got a little housekeeping first, though. You want to keep the house?
I'm keeping the house. Well, I would have loved to keep the house, Jason.
Yeah, I guess that doesn't. That was a bad timing joke.
Bad political pun. We wouldn't have kept it. We would have flipped it. We understand. So we're on Blue Sky now. We have to maintain another fucking social media platform. So thanks for that. Please follow us there. Threads and Instagram. Again, thanks to Megan for helping us move into like 2006, 2007 level territory here with the podcast. Our Threads account is blowing up, which is great. But, yep, we got to start over on Blue Sky. Need your follows on Instagram. And thanks to those of you who have already subscribed to our YouTube, despite us not having ever mentioned it here. If you prefer your podcast to have a video element or just want to see what cool-ass hat Jason is wearing this week, pop on over to YouTube and soon Spotify and subscribe to the video version of the pod there.
Which apparently a lot of people like. Who knew?
Again, like the whole reason why I like podcasts is because I can listen to them while doing other things, ranging from like playing video games to walking the dog to doing the dishes to cleaning the house. But if you just want to like surround yourself with screens and have me and Jason up in the little corner of your phone or something, like, go ahead.
Yeah.
You.
That's great, I guess. So we start with the sad news that there is a Republican trifecta in the federal government.
Can I actually add an addendum to this? I heard a term earlier this week that I think is actually more accurate. It's the Republican Quadfecta because they have the fucking courts too.
I like the trifecta better.
I like the idea of the trifecta better for sure, but like it's not.
That's too many fectas for me.
The fourfecta.
The fourfecta. Republicans will control the House by a small margin. Since our last episode, Democrat Yadira Caraveo conceded to Gabish Evans in the 8th Congressional District, which was not the final death knell for Democrats, but it didn't help. The final count appears to be somewhere in the range of 218 House Republicans, about 299 Democrats, about 18 races still left to call.
But getting to 218 means they will have the majority. Mike Johnson will have the gavel. They will be able to do whatever the fuck they want.
Right. Trump, meanwhile, wants the Senate to roll over on all of his nominees, some of whom we'll discuss in a moment. But the goodish news, I guess, in this regard is that John Thune was elected Senate Majority Leader instead of Skeletor Rick Scott in Florida, who would have just done whatever Trump wanted.
Again, like the worst part of this is that you have to like you find yourself sort of breathing sighs of relief or cheering on guys like John Thune, who are not good.
No.
But they are better than Rick Scott.
They are better than Rick Scott. And sorry, Georgia Republican Representative Mike Collins, you didn't get the guy you wanted, but you didn't get to vote anyway. I love this tweet from him last week where he says, quote, "I will not be voting for Thune or Cornyn for Senate Majority Leader. Do not attempt to change my mind," unquote.
And the community note says Mike Collins is a member of the U.S. House of Representatives and therefore cannot vote on Senate leadership. I like so badly want to believe this guy was just kind of joking, but I don't think that's what was happening. It's impossible to know, and like maybe the Constitution people will crack it open at some point and just read the thing.
Possibly.
Wouldn't count on it, though.
Trump is also rolling out a bunch of nominees for his administration. My original idea was that we would rank them by the worst, but I don't know if we can do that.
Why? Because they're all just so bad?
Yeah, they all suck. And I don't know, for the most part.
And Trump kind of set the table with this with a tweet. I'm not going to call it a post on X ever.
No.
But he's back on Twitter because his best buddy Elon Musk is now running. Everything is so fucking bleak. He said any Republican senator seeking the coveted all caps leadership position in the United States Senate must agree to recess appointments in the Senate, without which we will not be able to get people confirmed in a timely manner. Sometimes the votes can take 2 years or more. This is what they did 4 years ago, and we cannot let it happen again. We need positions filled immediately, all caps. Additionally, no judges, capital J, for some reason, should be approved during this period of time because the Democrats are looking to ram through their judges as Republicans fight over leadership. This is not acceptable, period. Thank you, all caps.
So recess appointments essentially means that they would end up getting the job without the Senate confirming them, which is how things are supposed to work, according to, that Constitution document and stuff like that.
Again, hoping they just trip over a copy of it. Maybe Rand Paul will hand them one on the floor. They can crack it open and get reading.
Now let's name a couple of these nominees and see if we can try to figure out who's worse, who's better. I don't know. Puppy killer Kristi Noem is the Secretary of Homeland Security.
I mean, the good news is that we do not have to worry about like a dog invasion. We're all set, safe from that.
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah. Here's one that I think is sneaky bad. Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence. She's been accused of being a Russian asset, for fuck's sake.
Like, credibly accused. Not just like Russiagate, throw it out there. Like, actually credibly accused. And Abigail Spanberger, who's a member of Congress from Virginia and is probably running for governor of Virginia, was a former CIA officer. Can I read what she wrote? Because I thought it was pretty good. She said, as a former CIA case officer, I saw the men and women of the U.S. intelligence community put their lives on the line every day for this country, and I am appalled at the nomination of Tulsi Gabbard to lead DNI. She is ill-prepared and unqualified for the role, traffics in conspiracy theories, and cozies up to dictators like Bashar al-Assad and Vladimir Putin. As a member of the House Intelligence Committee, I am deeply concerned about what this nomination portends for our national security. My Republican colleagues with a backbone should speak out. Will they, Jason?
Well, even Laura Ingraham of Fox News is publicly saying, what the hell's going on here? Take a listen.
And those who get rich from the status quo in D.C. are always going to be threatened by anyone demanding accountability. And this explains a lot of the frenzy over Trump's recent cabinet picks. Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence? You think Trump had given it to Putin himself?
Yeah, I've had that thought.
And she's ostensibly defending this pick, but good Lord. And I mean, like, remember, Tulsi Gabbard, former Democratic congresswoman from Hawaii, ran for president as a Democrat, did not make it very far in the process, decided that she was done for on the blue team, switched teams, and now is like running the transition and also going to be DNI. Holy shit.
Pete Hegseth was nominated as Secretary of Defense.
Who?
If you're not familiar with him, he's a Fox News weekend show host. So let's just put him in charge of the military. There was a great story on Politico about this where they're quoting a bunch of defense industry experts and lobbyists, and one of them says, quote, "Who the fuck is this guy?" unquote.
Right, and we had a local reaction from a friend of the pod, Rep. Jason Crow, who serves on, I think, Defense Intelligence, one or both, is a veteran, obviously a Green Beret, wrote, Pete Hegseth is not remotely qualified to be Secretary of Defense. The SecDef makes life and death decisions daily that impact our 2 million troops around the globe. This is not an entry-level job for a TV commentator. The Senate should do its job and deny this nomination.
This strikes me as one that, I don't know, if I was going to go through the list of who is less likely to end up getting these confirmations, he's going to be high up on the list. This one makes a lot of Trump's nominations don't make a lot of sense, but this one particularly
God willing, and like we'll talk about this a little bit more when we wrap up here, but like this is Trump's fucking government now. Everybody there believes it. no matter the fact that it was actually a really close election, no matter the fact that like it was only a couple seats that flipped in the House and Senate, like they are acting as if they have a Trump brand mandate, and that is how they're going to operate. And none of them want to be targeted by him or Elon Musk, who has essentially promised that he will sick his America PAC, as disorganized a shit show as that was, on anybody who opposes or votes against any of these nominees. So you're talking about this like oligarchical consolidation of power that is just terrifying. But let's go to the next one before we continue expounding on that.
Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee named as ambassador to Israel.
Not Jewish,
Not
by the
Jewish.
way.
And for those folks out there who opposed Kamala Harris because they didn't like President Biden's position on the war in Gaza, this CNN clip is for you.
My feelings personally, and I'm speaking only as a person, I think Israel would only be acting on the property it already owns. I think Israel has title deed to Judea and Samaria. There are certain words I refuse to use. There is no such thing as a West Bank. It's Judea and Samaria. There's no such thing as a settlement. They're communities, they're neighborhoods, they're cities. There's no such thing as an...
Hope you're happy, watermelon kids.
Yeah, that went well for you. Good God.
And we all know that Huckabee is only ambassador to Israel so that he can be there during the capital F, capital B final battle.
Right.
Like, this guy is like an eschatological evangelical who thinks like the end is nigh, and he wants to like supervise the final battle between God and the devil. Which
he wants to take selfies
positive.
at the end.
This is not great news, man.
No. And then one of the ones that has probably gotten more ink than any lately, Matt Giggity Gates for Attorney General.
Like, holy shit.
Gates resigned from Congress this week before a House Ethics Committee report release that was expected to be damaging. I'm hoping that still comes out. Yeah.
Day before. And this is about all of the credible accusations that he, like, does drugs with 17-year-olds and parties with them and has sex with them.
The Department of Justice investigated him for sex trafficking, for crying out loud.
A felon for president, a criminal for attorney general. Welcome to the party of law.
And if you're wondering if Republicans, most of whom apparently over the years have seemed to really despise Gates, here's Republican Congressman Mike Lawler of New York demonstrating his lack of spine.
Pretty sure I called him a clown and a shark. Pretty sure I called him a clown and a shark.
Separate news.
One quick question. Should a clown and a charlatan run the Justice Department?
Look, obviously, the president has every right to nominate who he chooses. There will be a confirmation process. We'll let that process play it out.
Yay.
Great. Way to stick up for the country, man. Thank you.
I mean, at least he won't be voting on it, but good God. And then finally, well, not last or least, because who knows what's next, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will be nominated for Secretary of Health and Human Services.
He's going to let him go wild on health, Jason, as promised.
And
here's one
services.
thing you can't say about Trump this time. He kept a lot of promises.
Yeah, he did in that regard.
This particular chicken came home to roost in a pretty big way in Colorado this week.
Yeah, in a really unexpected way. Governor Jared Polis took to social media to explain why he was happy about RFK Jr. being Director of Health and Human Services. Here's 9 News explaining this whole weird story.
All right.
Sticker meal per.
President-elect Donald Trump says anti-vaccine activist Robert F. Kennedy Jr. will lead America's health agencies, a decision immediately cheered today by Colorado's Democratic Governor Jared Polis. This is quite the change in position from Polis from 3 months ago, when Polis said of RFK that he wasn't sure how bringing back polio and measles makes anyone more healthy. Kennedy has a long history of false and misleading claims about vaccines, including claims that vaccines cause autism, an assertion at odds with evidence from decades of research. Kennedy has claimed Wi-Fi causes cancer and that AIDS may not be caused by HIV. Kennedy has claimed without evidence that COVID-19 could have been an ethnically targeted bioweapon designed to infect whites and spare Jewish people. And he spread the theory that the COVID vaccine was designed to control people via microchips. Kennedy's linked chemicals in water to transgender children and linked antidepressants to school shootings, claims not supported by research. Apart from RFK Jr.'s scientific misinformation, when he was recently accused of sexual assault, he brushed off the claim, saying he's not a church boy, adding, "I am who I am." Our Marshall Zellinger looks at Governor Jared Polis's enthusiastic support of RFK Jr.'s nomination.
Make America Healthy Again. Using a play on words of President-elect Trump's slogan, Democratic Governor Jared Polis cheered on the selection of RFK Jr., an anti-vaxxer, as the cabinet pick to run Health and Human Services. Compare that to Polis's social media post in August about RFK Jr., where Polis said, "Not sure how bringing back measles and bringing back polio makes anyone more healthy."
When we have respected leaders like our governor giving credibility to that vaccine hesitancy, it puts our communities at risk.
Democratic State Senator Kyle Mullica is not on Polis's side on this. Part of Polis's support for RFK Jr. included this line: "He helped us defeat vaccine mandates in Colorado in 2019. Couple things about that. Legislative records show RFK Jr. was in Colorado in 2020 testifying against Mullica's vaccination bill, and that bill did not mandate vaccinations. It also passed and was signed by Polis at a time when Colorado ranked last in school-aged vaccination rates.
To have it say that we were looking at trying to pass policy that was mandating vaccines is just inaccurate.
What the bill did was provide a new non-medical opt-out process for families that did not want children to be vaccinated, which requires watching a video like this that teaches about vaccinations before the parent can opt out.
If you looked to exempt your child from vaccines, that you had to go through a similar step as if you were going to get your child vaccinated or immunized.
That 2020 bill signed by Polis also called for transparency from school districts. This map shows district by district the vaccination rate for diseases like measles, mumps, and rubella, and polio. It also shows the exemption rate, and on another page, the non-compliance rate.
And I think that when you look at that map, Marshall, I think it's pretty clear that the work that we did not mandate vaccines.
Behind me here, from I believe it's August 2021, is a letter from the governor, Polis, to the State Board of Health asking the State Board of Health in this bold section in the center to create a rule requiring vaccines of COVID-19 for state employees, or perhaps it's also just people who have contact in healthcare services to help the COVID-19 pandemic. This was something that the governor had the State Board of Health do, which they did. Again, this is evidence of one side of prodding people to get a vaccine, while also other directions. In all those news conferences during COVID-19, Kyle, he went out of his way to say this is not a mandate, it's a choice, but we're telling you why you should do it.
I mean, the thing that I remember from the governor's COVID press conferences was the day when he got emotional. He choked up when anti-vaxxers compared his pandemic restrictions to the Holocaust. Governor cried talking about his family who died in the Holocaust. RFK Jr., of course, has also compared pandemic restrictions to the Holocaust. He also he was talking about that business about how COVID could be targeting white people and sparing Jews, that nonsense. The governor, by the way, just sent us a statement. So, Marshall, you're going to hear this for the first time here. Governor Polis has not changed his view as a whole on RFK Jr. or on the governor's previously stated concerns regarding some of RFK Jr.'s positions. That from the governor's staff just a short time ago. I think there's going to be some explaining that happens at some point.
I mean, we're already seeing calls for it from his own party saying, how can you cheer someone who is against something that we as a state were trying to better in terms of vaccination and options for vaccinations? And what is Halloween, when I was asking him about some Secretary of State stuff, where he was actually getting the COVID vaccine in front of people on camera to encourage vaccinations. We were invited. The governor's getting a vaccine. Come get footage of it. Spread the word.
Yeah, listen, we're all for people changing their minds in light of new information or a change of heart, and I think it'll be
So weird.
Yeah. Before we get into the analysis, I just want to share that there was a response from RFK Jr. to the governor's tweet that was then deleted, but we're going to put it up right here. Thank you, Governor Polish. I look forward to working with you. MAHA, which apparently stands for Make America Healthy Again.
I mean,
It's
it
the
really is
fucking
perfect.
worst timeline I can think of, man. I absolutely what a shit show. And then Ezra Klein, maybe future friend of the show, actually interviewed the governor and talked about it on Pod Save America this week, and in an effusive way. And Jared Polis is a generationally talented communicator. He's doing a great job running a state like Colorado. Look at all this good stuff he did. This is the conversation he had with Jon Favreau on Pod Save America. And here's a tweet from Ezra, who is back on Twitter after quitting and I guess coming back with his new gig as a podcaster / columnist for New York Times. He says, I interviewed Governor Polis a few days before the RFK pick, and I think this is a bit of our conversation helps explain his strikingly positive reaction to the idea of RFK Jr. leading HHS. Quote, I was sad to see RFK leaving our coalition because his voters in Colorado are a big part of my coalition. I mean, I had to threaten to veto vaccine mandates, and we were able to avoid them. We have been trying to legalize raw milk in our state for several years, and we're continuing to try because it leans into empowering people to make their own choices. I certainly believe in vaccinations. I get vaccinated myself. I did that publicly last week for the flu and COVID. But if you can't convince people with the data, then they have the personal freedom not to. Our bodies, our choice applies not just to fetuses, but also to decisions around healthcare, whether it's getting vaccinated or what foods you consume. So, I disagree with the governor on this stuff.
Yes, I do too.
Also think that it does land pretty well within his wheelhouse of being this, libertarian-ish guy. I also think it's, probably worth reading in whole his initial tweet, because while I understand the backlash, if you literally read every word of it, it is a very Jared Polis thing to say.
You just probably shouldn't have said it.
Well, I mean, let's talk about that. So the entirety of the missive was, I'm excited by the news that the president-elect will appoint Robert Kennedy Jr. to HHS Gov. He helped us defeat vaccine mandates in Colorado in 2019 and will help make America healthy again by shaking up HHS and FDA. I hope he leans into personal choice on vaccines rather than bans, which I think are terrible, just like mandates. But what I'm most optimistic about is taking on big pharma and the corporate ag oligopoly to improve our health. Before you mock him or disagree, I want to share with you some quotes that, if he follows through, show why I'm excited. First, level the playing field for Americans internationally on drug costs, cap drug prices so that companies can't charge Americans substantially more than Europeans pay. Yes, Colorado currently has an application just sitting at FDA for us to import low-cost prescription drugs from Canada, and we just need their approval. 2, in some categories, there are entire departments, like the nutrition department at the FDA, that have to go, that are not doing their job, they're not protecting our kids. Yes, the entire nutrition regime is dominated by big corporate ag rather than the human health, and they do more harm than good. 3, we've got to get off pesticide-intensive agriculture. Yes, we have tried unsuccessfully to better protect people and pollinators from harmful pesticides here in Colorado, and we need all the help we can get to take on big chemical companies and improve human health and the environment for our pollinators and our people. He will face, and this is the governor, he will face strong special interest opposition on these, but I look forward to partnering with him to truly make America healthy again, and I hope that we can finally make progress on these important issues. So, those are 3 things that before the governor tweeted anything, before RFK said anything, the governor just agrees with. He said them out loud. He tried to pass bills on pesticides. Mm-hmm. He tried to pass bills. Like he said, he has an application in front of the FDA. And this is not to excuse it, but part of the problem when you endorse someone instead of something is that you end up getting saddled with all the other crazy shit they said or did that you don't agree with and don't believe in. And we're in this unfortunate social media driven, hot take driven conversation these days in which the entirety of that tweet, every word of that is defensible if you're Jared Polis because it's stuff you believe. But what it appeared to be and what people are interpreting it as is a full-scale endorsement of RFK as HHS secretary and or overseeing FDA, which I think scares the shit out of lots of reasonable people.
Well, he did this twice in there and this part really bothered me, that he used making America healthy again. He's using the Trump phrasing, and that's not necessary or helpful.
Well, I agree. I also think I am intuiting a little bit of what I think the governor's trying to do here. This is also the same week that him and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker essentially rolled out this, gubernatorial resistance, which they're not calling that. They're calling it governors defending democracy or securing democracy or something like that. And it's ostensibly like we're going to use the levers of power that we have in our states to make sure that like the Trump administration doesn't roll over our states' rights. Like that's a very good place for a guy like Polis and a guy like Pritzker to be. But the problem is in trying to find a way to balance the scales or throw a bone to the other side, or he just kind of, it seems, picked the wrong target at the wrong time with the wrong context, and therefore he's kind of getting blown up over it.
His team did afterward try to roll some of this back, and I think I don't know if it helped. It may have made it a little worse, frankly. How do we, if we were asked, how would you deal with this kind of crisis communication?
So, like, there's no good answer, right? Like, once something like this has happened, it is sort of like it's going to be a problem. It's a question of how much damage it does, short, medium, and long term, right? And, like, there's all sorts of interesting conversations going around. I mean, because we're in the lefty bubble, you and me. That's where we live, right? Where it's like, oh, my God, he endorsed RFK, who said things like vaccines are like the Holocaust. That's obviously fucking bad, right? But then there's, like, my friends in the middle or on the right who are, like, sort of disconnected from politics. But everyone I know texted me this tweet yesterday while we're recording on Friday. So this happened on Thursday this week. Like, so this broke through. My mom texted me this.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Like
it
this,
went everywhere.
Yeah, everybody saw this. It's going to lead the A block of a lot of the Sunday shows this weekend, unfortunately. But you basically have, I think, 5-ish options. Oh, to finish the last point, like the right-wing people were like, who from the Democratic Party made the phone call demanding that he rescind his That's not what happened.
Yeah, I don't think nobody had to make the call.
Nobody had to. And like, well, then they're like, oh, the mob made him do it. And it's like, that's not really what's going on here either. He probably got over his skis. And like the 3 things he agrees with RFK on, he tried to highlight while like trying to shift the conversation in that direction. But unfortunately, RFK is just objectionable in so many other ways that those 3 things aren't going to kind of make up for what people object to about him. So anyway, I think there's like 5 options, right? The first is like attempt to clarify, which is sort of what the governor did. And we can talk about whether or not that was successful. Number 2 is kind of like apologize and walk it back, right? And be like, whoop, sorry, like that's not what I meant, and see if you can fight it to a draw that way. Number 3 is like delete it and pretend nothing happened because everyone has the memory of a goldfish and there will certainly be a new main character of the internet by Monday. So like just kind of, delete it, pretend it's gone. This happens all the time. Number 4, I guess I have 6 ideas here. Number 4, double down and weather the storm because there will be a new main character of the internet by Monday for sure. So the other thing you can do is like, no, I meant what I said. And obviously I don't endorse these other things that he said. These are the 3 things we agree on. And that's where and I stand by that. Number 5 is kind of wait it out. Because again, like this too shall pass is sort of like the number 1 rule of comms, no matter what. This is a very Trumpy sort of thing to do. And then finally, like, deploy your surrogates is the other idea, which it seems like maybe the governor did, or maybe some other governors were coming out on his behalf, such as Hawaii Governor
Josh Green. Is that who you're talking about?
That is who I'm talking about. Let's play this clip.
Well, first of all, I was with Jared today throughout the day at the Governors Association meeting. We talked about this. Jared is very worried about what RFK would do over vaccinations. Whether or not RFK gets to do anything else, who knows? But this is a gentleman who has absolutely no training in public health, no experience in public health, nor does he have any experience in biopharmacologic processes either. He is a quack scientist. It is obvious. And Mr. Trump is doing this to be provocative. Now, tearing down government when children's health is on the line is not okay. I was disappointed in Jared, who I love, who is one of my favorite governors, but it is not okay. It's not okay to do what he did, to cast doubt on processes that are well established in science. It makes parents scared. When parents are scared, they don't take action. If people freeze and we lose 10 or 20% of our vaccination rates, you'll see disease spread widely across America. And remember, you've got a lot of children who are too young to be vaccinated who will be very vulnerable when these diseases spread. You'll see some polio come back. You'll certainly see outbreaks of measles and mumps and chickenpox. All of these things don't just sometimes kill you, they also will cause serious neurologic damage when children are ending up with infections because they couldn't get immunity.
I don't know if that helped.
Maybe not. But like the point is, like, look, Polis could have accomplished what he wanted to accomplish without praising RFK Jr.
Yeah.
Right? When you talk about a person and not the policy, you end up being forced to defend a list of rather unsavory things, right? Like we played in that Kyle Clark, Marshall Zellinger clip. So at the end of the day, Jared Polis is a very popular governor. He's a very good governor. I have no doubt that he will be just fine in terms of his overall popularity and approval rating coming out of this. But I think it's a lesson that, like, don't tweet, ever, but everything that comes to your mind. And, like, also, like, there's some value in maybe, like, showing a draft to a buddy and saying, like, hey, I'm thinking about putting this out. What do you think? And maybe...
And don't use the phrasing of the administration.
Yeah, there's no reason to adopt MAGA language, really.
None.
Anyway, love you, Gov.
Let's talk about some updates to Colorado election results. The state Senate began the year with Democrats holding a 23-12 majority. That's where it will remain going into 2025.
Net 0 seats in the state Senate despite, what, $5 million in spending?
Yeah, about $5.5 million by Republicans to get exactly where they were already.
And we should just run down leadership elections happened. Senator Fenberg, who led the chamber for the last 6 years or so, is termed out, so he's no longer in the Senate. But State Senator James Coleman of Denver has been elected Senate president, with Senator Robert Rodriguez, also of Denver, holding down the floor as majority leader. Senator Daphne Michelson-Jeannet of Commerce City is Senate president pro tempore. That means she runs the chamber if James Coleman's out for the day. Senator Lisa Cutter of Jeffco, I think senator of the pod, actually, is assistant majority leader. And Senators Jeff Bridges and Judy Amable of Arapahoe County, Judy of Boulder, serve on the powerful Joint Budget Committee. And there's your Senate leadership.
In the House, Republicans might gain 3 seats or so. They've been really celebrating on social media, claiming that they stopped Democrats from getting a supermajority in Colorado, which is a stretch. I can confidently say that supermajority was not a goal for Democrats. At least I never heard anyone talking about it. Nobody would have.
We were fucking shocked. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It came after independent redistricting. There were like 20 seats in the middle. We were like, all right, we feel pretty good about majority. We feel pretty good about getting up to like 38, 39 seats. 46 seats was not like the thing they played on. And all you have to do is go and look at the post-redistricting, so 2022, independent and hard side spending to see where the money went, and then like 5 or 6 seats just kind of came our way.
The reason Republicans are saying this is to justify all the money they lit on fire, accomplishing virtually nothing. Really, I mean, I think they went to a bunch of donors and said, give us like $8 million total, roughly, to prevent Democrats from having a supermajority
in both chambers.
So the 3 seats in the House, they spent about $500,000 getting Dan Woog over the finish line in HD 19 in Erie. Democrats spent $0 helping a woman get who had a vacancy committee appointment after incumbent Democrat Jennifer Parenti resigned. This was not a seat Democrats had even held prior to 2022.
No, this is one of those like surprise bonuses.
Right. So they just got this back, which they should have already had. The Democratic opponent there was Jillaire McMillan.
And like she jumped into a vacancy, ran a great race, got within, I think, a recount margin of winning in a district that is like very unfriendly to Democrats. So like, great job. Sorry it didn't work out. But to your point, we never should have had the seat to begin with.
That's also true in House District 16 in Colorado Springs. Rebecca Kelty, the Republican, leads Democrat Stephanie Vigil by 7 votes.
That's 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 votes as of the recording of this podcast. That obviously puts it within mandatory recount threshold of less than 0.5%. So there will be a recount. These things tend not to change the outcome, but we tend not to have 7 votes.
Yeah, 7's pretty
separating. Like, an election can actually move 10 votes, right?
Yeah.
After a recount.
Well, that one you only need 4 votes to change.
Turns out.
Yeah. And the big loss for Democrats, the only real loss, is Mary Young coming up just short in House District 50 in Greeley. That's a district Democrats have defended for about 20 years. That race was also very close.
One of the first people I was ever a legislative aide for was former state representative Jim Reesberg, who represented HD 50, basically just Greeley at that point, in 2006. And we have had the seat for, to your point, about 20 years, basically that long, and this will be the first time we lose it. Mary Young, of course, is also married to friend of the show, Treasurer Dave Young, and this is a huge loss for Colorado, for Greeley, for Weld County, and for the state legislature for sure.
But in short, Republicans spent about $8 million, as we said, for a net gain of 0 Senate seats and maybe 3 House seats. So Democrats go from a House supermajority to just a House big-ass majority, as you would say. In other words, the biggest majority in modern history to the second biggest majority in modern history.
And there are going to be plenty of people trying to spin this as a W, but I guess when all their bills get killed in committee, they'll realize that it doesn't fucking matter.
Colorado Republicans are also fighting it out on social media because State Party Chairman Dave Williams and his minions are naturally taking credit for these victories that they almost certainly had nothing to do with because they were busy filing lawsuits against other Republicans in Colorado. But one more note about this in terms of just the absurdity of redistricting and the makeup of Colorado. Colorado is the only state in the country where the presidential race was decided by more than 10 points, but the other party, the Republicans, hold at least half the seats in Congress.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
It's really, really bad. And like this is like you said, this is a outcome of independent redistricting where instead of having a map that has a handful of competitive races, which would mean that a bunch of them would probably go one way or the other based on the national or state environment politically, you end up with this 4-4 delegation where Colorado should, at a minimum with a 10-point Harris victory, have a 5-3 delegation and in all likelihood have a 6-2 delegation. If Lauren Boebert didn't run away into a different district, we would certainly have the third with Adam Frisch representing it at this point. With 7 safe seats, 1 razor-thin coin flip is not the stated intention of independent redistricting.
No. It's a result of redistricting. Just remove the independent word. Things are getting worse for Secretary of State Jenna Griswold. We mentioned this in a recent episode. She's had some problems with some passwords maybe being put online, and it's really her response to this that didn't go well. Westward ran a long story outlining all of her errors as Secretary of State. But let's go back to 9 News for the big problem she's got at the moment.
Democratic Secretary of State Jenna Griswold's office was not going to tell county election clerks and the public that they had accidentally leaked voting machine passwords. 9 News Investigates has obtained an audio recording where Griswold's chief deputy tells the clerks that they were not going to be told because it would cause a media frenzy. Griswold only notified the clerks and only changed the passwords after that security breach was revealed to the media and the public. That security breach came out 5 days after Griswold's office learned about it when the Colorado Republican Party broke the news and asked for an investigation. The passwords had been inadvertently posted on her website in the hidden tab of a spreadsheet, sitting there for months. Clerks were upset to find out about it through the news. Griswold told me that day that she hadn't decided whether the public was ever going to be told. 9 News Investigates got a hold of an audio recording of Griswold's top deputy speaking to the clerks just minutes after I talked with Griswold that day.
Josh, I appreciate that you're expressing upset. And
I'm not
traveling.
upset, Chris. I'm pissed off, and it's really hard not answering media questions the way I actually want to.
Okay, I will tell you, all I can do is be as transparent as I possibly can. We were not going to tell counties because we could not tell counties without it becoming the media storm it has become.
It's Chris.
No, it is not.
The clerk there saying it's bull is a Democratic clerk, we should mention. Election security experts say that the leaked passwords alone were not enough to compromise Colorado's voting system. Secretary of State Griswold initially brushed off the incident, said that her office would be investigating itself. The governor then called for an outside investigation. That's now happening. Griswold's office says that she regrets that the clerks found out about this from the media.
So, like, we're not here to, like, pile on Governor Polis or pile on Secretary Griswold. Like, that's not what we're doing. We're not spiking footballs or taking victory laps here. But, like, this is a big story in the state, so it's worth talking about.
And it's 100% a self-inflicted wound.
This audio is really not great.
No.
And quite frankly, like, we said this while the story was developing. The move here was to get all the clerks together, put the Republican ones forward, because that's where you have your insane fucking election conspiracy problems, and they at least have a little bit of trust with those, like, conspiracy theorist types. Put them front and center and fan them out across the state and say the election is safe, the election is secure, there's nothing to worry about. It was a partial, half a password. It was unfortunate. We've taken extraordinary measures to change them all right away, but it's an unfortunate reality. Sometimes the answer is not to immediately go into a press conference or immediately go into an interview.
Yes.
And make sure you circle your wagons, put your best spokespeople forward so you can actually administer the thing it is your job to do, which will also help you contain the damage, by the way.
This comes at a bad time for Griswold, who has been prepping for months to run for governor in 2026. How much damage do you think this has done to her gubernatorial hopes?
I'm not sure. I mean, she still has a lot of cachet with a lot of the activist class. She's still on MSNBC and CNN a lot. I've seen her give lots of speeches in front of lots of groups of Democrats who seem to like what she has to say. I think she's still...
But this was all before this happened.
That's fair enough. But look, I mean, if we're talking about the governor's race, like right now, the sort of three big names that people are throwing around are Griswold, all three friends of the pod, right?
Yeah.
Secretary of State Jenna Griswold, Attorney General Phil Weiser, and then Congressman Joe Neguse, number 4 in the U.S. House. I mean, they're all great. They're all great Democrats. And the thing is that voters, primary voters, consultants, donors, organizations, they're all going to be looking for reasons to go one way or another. And obviously, this doesn't help make the case for it. May. I don't think it stops it from happening, quite frankly. But I think it is something that will make people think twice, hesitate, or maybe go to another camp. What do you think?
I think that's exactly it. In a contested primary, you can't give Democrats, Republicans, whoever, you can't give them a reason to write you off. And that's what she's done.
And it's a contested primary with 3 very high-quality candidates, right, and likely many more, right? This is the thing.
Right. This makes it easy for you to be like, I'll go with someone else.
And since we're not going to have ranked choice voting, like, you can't say that maybe one candidate would have been ranked 1 and now is 2 or 3 or anything like that. But, like, I think your coalition politics become tougher and it becomes harder for you. Any scandal, any misstatement, any mistake or perceived mistake that happens from now until when announcements start happening and campaigns start getting formed and money starts getting raised is going to set the stage one way or another.
Let's talk about our 8th favorite member of Congress from Colorado.
I mean, and like, you know, she's scandal plagued constantly. Didn't seem to hurt her chances. So, you know, there's a model.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a slightly different model.
I think it just depends if you have shame or not.
Lauren Boebert returned to Congress and in the House Oversight Committee was discussing with an expert panel of retired and former defense officials and NASA administrators. She wanted to talk about aliens, alien-human hybrids, and underwater alien bases.
I mean, this is a place where we actually share quite a bit of overlap, so I don't know what your problem is.
Boebert actually shared this on her social media pages as though this was good for her.
No, this is a promotion. This is not like somebody took the C-SPAN clip and then made fun of her. This is her putting it out.
Right. Let's take a listen to this.
Yeah.
But Mr. Schellenberger, I wanted to ask you, I think I understand from this hearing that you would agree that classifying information like this is not in the best interest of the people. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, with the caveat that, of course, I would support classification necessary to protect secrets essential to national security, but I think it's pretty obvious that there's overclassification.
Overclassification, yes. And so in most instances, if they can't tell us what, do you think at some point they'll at least tell us why?
President-elect Trump has repeatedly committed to greater transparency, both on the UAP issue, on JFK files, on COVID origins, and many other things. So I think that we need to make sure that the next administration is held accountable for that.
Agreed. And this is for all four of you. Yes or no, please. I have many questions I want to get to. Are there any known instances of recovered materials or technologies that are not of human origin and maybe connected to any advanced bioscience defense programs within the USG?
I don't know. I wouldn't be able to answer that, ma'am.
I don't know.
I don't know.
That second guy scared me.
There are rumors that have come up to the Hill of a secretive project within the Department of Defense involving the manipulation of human genetics. What is described as non-human genetic material, potentially for the enhancement of human capabilities.
Rumors from who?
Hybrids. Are any of you familiar with that? Yes.
Have
or
you
no?
not watched Ancient Aliens, bro?
I am not, ma'am.
I'm not.
I don't know what you're talking about, lady.
So remember, second guy
I would
now
like
said,
to know,
I don't know,
with
instead of, I
Immaculate
can't talk about that.
Constellation, how does this relate to UAP activities, Mr. Schellenberg, in oceanic environments? Are there any instances where the Navy or other maritime forces have encountered UAPs that could not be explained by known technology or natural phenomena?
Yeah, the Immaculate Constellation covers both terrestrial and oceanic, and there's actually a number of cases described in the report that occur in the ocean.
And do you believe that there is a concerted effort by the Pentagon to keep Congress out of the loop regarding these UAP activities, specifically in our waters?
Yes.
I think it's about 5% of our ocean that's actually been studied in detail by man, and we've studied more of space than we had of our own oceans. And so are there any accounts of UAPs emerging from or submerging into our water, which could indicate a base or presence beneath the ocean's surface?
I don't know about a base, but as I mentioned, I had a different source entirely describe this pretty extraordinary footage that exists of orbs, of an orb coming out of the ocean and being met by another orb.
Some would say that.
All right.
Are there any reports that you're aware of giraffe people living in the center of the earth?
Again, you fucking laugh, but I think she's onto something here. So I guess you and I are just gonna have to agree to disagree on this shit.
Again, all this woman cares about is clicks. This has nothing to do with actual governance.
No.
And I think it was interesting also to look at her performance or her persistent underperformance as a candidate for Congress. The Washington Post called her one of the worst 2024 candidates in the country, and the data does back that up.
But we said this. I mean, she ran to the very safest district in the state because she almost lost the second very safest district in the state for Republicans, maybe third if you want to count CD5. Again, thanks Independent Redistricting Committee. And underperformed by how much?
By a full 7 points. Ken Buck won this seat in the 4th District with just shy of 61% of the vote in 2022. Boebert got 53.72%.
Yeah,
and
she still gets to sit on the dais and ask about underwater aliens, Jason.
Underwater alien bases also, yes. The differential is pretty ridiculous. This is in the 4th Congressional District, a Republican-leaning district by about 27%. Boebert won that race this year by a little less than 12 points. Ken Buck won it again in 2022 by 24 points.
So normie Republican wins by 24 points. Lauren Boebert wins by 12 points. Again, she still gets to be in Congress.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So what about her old district and the congressman-elect who has internalized our nickname for him? That's right, bread sandwich, Jeff Hurd. Is he as boring as we thought?
Maybe as boring, but also weirder than we thought. Friend of the pod, Charles Ashby of the Grand Junction Daily Sentinel, wrote about a very bizarre election night watch party. Apparently, Hurd's campaign sequestered reporters in a makeshift room at the watch party and even demanded that reporters treat everything that happened that they happened to hear through the curtains as off the record unless they gained permission from the campaign. Journalists even had to get someone to take them to the bathroom if they wanted to leave this corral.
That's pretty weird.
Hurd apparently went to talk to the reporters in the room and told them how transparent he was going to be as a congressman. I guess that starts later. I don't know. Here's what Ashby wrote, quote, "In all my nearly 50 years in journalism, about half of which was covering politics in Colorado, I have never heard of what happened during Jeff Hurd's election night watch party occurring anywhere else."
This
I've
is like
never heard of this
Charles
either.
Ashby doing the Hunter S. Thompson thing, which I really appreciate. So like, yeah, it's really great. But no, I mean, it's very, very weird. And then like in order to try and sort of like clean this up, our friend, the bread sandwich himself, took to the website formerly known as Twitter with this.
Hello, everyone. Greetings from downtown Glenwood Springs. I am here on Grand Avenue, shaking hands, saying hello to people. Just had some great coffee. Had the privilege of joining parishioners at St. Stephen's Catholic Parish for their noon Spanish language mass. Wonderful and vibrant faith community there. I just want to say how honored I am to have your faith and your trust and the privilege of serving you in Congress as your next congressman. I promise to never forget where I came from and to work my hardest to make life better for you in Western and Southern Colorado. Thank you so much for the trust that you placed in me, and here's to a better future.
And here's the last time you'll ever hear my voice.
And this will be the last thing you ever see. Yeah, I mean, again, like it really feels like I'm not going to blame Jeff Hurd for this. I don't know the actual reasons. This feels like a overzealous campaign manager, like corralling and
Although, but if
herding
I
reporters.
were Hurd and I walk into this room where you've got the press like curtained off, I think I'd be saying, "What are we doing here?"
Yeah, fair enough. I guess the responsibility does lie with the main man, doesn't it?
It certainly does. All right, let's talk about a couple of quick hits, and then we'll get out of here this week. One of the best stories I've seen this week that made me feel slightly better about our humanity in the United States, The Onion has bought InfoWars. So good.
It's so good, and the story that they wrote to, like, announce the purchase is titled "Here's Why I Decided to Buy InfoWars" by Bryce P. Titreader, Global Tetrahedron CEO, and it is fucking amazing and very, 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 very much worth your time.
If you aren't familiar, InfoWars is the website run by Alex Jones, or formerly run by Alex Jones, the conspiracy theorist who got in trouble for saying that the Sandy Hook shootings were a hoax and involved paid crisis actors. The Onion, as part of a $1.4 billion defamation verdict, Jones has to sell off all these things. The families of the Sandy Hook shootings who were involved in this lawsuit allowed The Onion to sort of underbid for this. The Onion is going to turn the website, along with the gun safety organization, Every Town for Gun Safety, into a humor site that it will launch in January.
So, like, sometimes karma still works a little.
Karma still does poke its head up every now and then, absolutely. Despite the Republicans having a trifecta or quadfecta or however many factors you want to talk about, Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is still not happy because, why would she be? Here she is going after House Speaker Mike Johnson.
We should have a major majority, a super majority, but we don't. And we don't have that, I think, is based on the performance of this Congress. This Congress has had a lot of failures in the eyes of our voters, in the eyes of the American people. The American people gave a mandate last Tuesday of the types of policies they want, the agenda that they want, and that's President Trump's policies that he laid out on the campaign.
Is Speaker Johnson to blame for that?
Yes, his leadership. Unfortunately, he fully passed the Biden-Harris agenda.
Can't we have nice things? If I was a Republican, I'd be like, can
we
you
should
just
have a
wait a week or two?
supermajority as quite the fucking take on like a coin flip election, by the way.
Right. Among the appointments Donald Trump has made for his new administration, he's asking Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to head up a Department of Government Efficiency.
Which is named after the Dogecoin, in case you didn't fucking get the very funny joke.
Nothing says efficiency like appointing two people to head up one organization. As George Will writes for the Washington Post, I thought this was really interesting. He says, quote, Musk says he can cut at least $2 trillion from federal spending, say $1 in 3. Fiscal 2024 spending was $6.75 trillion.
Well, I can just stop paying the interest on the debt. That's one way of doing it.
Nah, not so much. Here's what Will writes. Quote, debt service, 13.1% of fiscal 2024 spending, is not optional, and it's larger than defense, 12.9%, which Trump wants to increase.
Yeah.
Entitlements, like Social Security and Medicare, are 34.6%, and by Trumpian fiat are sacrosanct. So Musk's promise is to cut about 30% of the total budget from a roughly 40% portion of the budget. Politics be damned, unquote.
So part of me wants to be like, ha, math is going to get you. The other part of me is like, he might try, though.
Yeah, he might try, but again, the point here is, whenever you see people say we should run government like a business, those are people who don't understand how government runs.
Right.
It's not that simple.
God, we're
finally
in for a wild one, Jason.
I guess. Finally, our gibberish of the week. Here's 900-year-old Sylvester Stallone introducing Donald Trump at the America First Policy Institute.
But I'll just keep it short and sweet, because there's no such a thing as a speech too short. When I did Rocky, if you remember, the first image was a picture of Jesus, and it says Resurrection AC Club. I found a church that had been converted to a boxing ring. So the image pans down from Jesus onto Rocky being hit. And at that moment, he was a chosen person, and that's how I began the journey. Something was going to happen. This man was going to go through a metamorphosis and change lives, just like President Trump. We are in the presence of a really mythical character. I love mythology. And this individual does not exist on this planet. Nobody in the world could have pulled off what he pulled off. So I'm in awe. And I'll just say this, and I mean it. When George Washington defended his country, he had no idea that he was going to change the world. Because without him, you can imagine what the world would look like. Guess what? We got the second George Washington. Congratulations.
No.
I can't even fucking react to that. It's so bad, dude. It's so bad, dude.
The second. Also, George Washington was well aware of what he was doing, because that's why he refused to continue serving as president. He stepped down voluntarily because he knew that if he kept going, we would be no better than England with its monarchy at the time. But anyway, history is dumb, and you just make it up as you go along, apparently.
Seems to work.
All right, that's it for us this week.
The Get More Smarter podcast is a production of ColoradoPolls.com and the Bighorn Company. Your hosts are me, Ian Silveri, and America's dad,
Jason Bain,
who somehow figured out how to engineer and produce this thing. Breakmaster Cylinder made the theme song. Go get your shots while you still fucking can. This week's listener feedback comes from John G4 on Apple Podcasts, who writes, I do a little dance every time I hear the theme song. Despite being on local politics, it has a rightfully snarky national appeal. One of my all-time politics podcasts. Say hi to CityCast Denver for me. Hey, Paul. Thank you so much for your comment. Remember, we'll keep talking if you keep listening. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Rate the show and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts if you got more smarter. It helps a lot. And if you leave us a review or even a nice comment on one of the 3,000 fucking social media platforms, you'll get a shout out just like John G4. Find us at getmoresmarter.com, where you can sign up for bonus content in our Substack. And please send all your emails to angerrants@getmoresmarter.com, other shit to Ian at getmoresmarter.com, and other shit to Jason at getmoresmarter.com. Most importantly, thank you so much for listening. Thanks for sticking with us through this all. Gonna be a wild ride, and we'll see you next week.